Witch Hat Atelier's anime adaptation feels impossible, in the best way. If you're familiar at all with Witch Hat Atelier as a manga, one of the most frequent praises of the series is its incredibly intricate and inventive use of paneling. It's likely the first thing you'll see discussed when anyone talks about Shirahama's work, and for good reason. As far as using comics and manga pages as a medium, Witch Hat is almost in a league of its own as a sort of meta love letter to the craftsmanship of making a manga. And to be honest, I wasn't sure that a TV adaptation could ever do Witch Hat Atelier's art style justice. After all, how do you adapt something so intrinsically linked to comics into an entirely different medium? But with the first 2 episodes of Witch Hat Atelier out, I think we have our answer. I'm Dom, and this is how Witch Hat Atelier went from a love letter to comics to a love letter to animation. Witch Hat Atelier just aired with 2 episodes covering the first couple chapters of the manga, and I really have to tip my brimmed cap to all the animators and directors working on this. The manga is a visual treat, one of my favorite art styles of all time, something that impossibly toes the line between looking like a colorful pastel Miyazaki film, a dark seinen series, and a hyper-feminine shoujo masterpiece. Witch Hat Atelier is a series I've been a fan of for a minute now. Last summer I made a 30-minute video on why you should read the manga, which is about 80% spoiler-free if you want to go give that a watch. And I've also done live streams reading all 14 volumes of the manga. So to say I was eagerly awaiting the anime adaptation would be an understatement. It might be the most hyped I've been for an anime in years. Alongside Frieren and Dungeon Meshi, Witch Hat Atelier completes what's been called the Fantasy Big Three, ushering in a new era of fantasy anime for the modern generation. And honestly, after what's felt like a lifetime of isekai, it's so refreshing to have genuine, earnest, high fantasy back in anime again. I've done my fair share of Dungeon Meshi, and I have just been waiting for my chance to talk Witch Hat Atelier. The first thing anyone will likely notice about this show is just how gorgeous the adaptation is. Shirahama's world really comes to life here with some incredible mood and color design throughout. They really managed to capture the tone of the series so well, that same essence of a grand, unknowable adventure, like in a Ghibli film or even a Zelda game. It just feels alive and well here. And even just in these first 2 episodes, there are moments of pure visual spectacle. Especially with scenes like Kifuri saving Coco from the petrification spell. These moments of action are animated with such visual flair and style that it looks like something straight out of a battle shonen. Like, press pause at the right moment on this and you'd think it was in the middle of a Jujutsu Kaisen fight or something. And not just because Gojo Kifuri comparisons are going to be the most overused joke of 2026. But it's not just the explosive action set pieces either. The lush, detailed backgrounds are genuinely breathtaking. From the forests of Coco's magical laundromat to the mountainside village to the stunning sunrise as Coco, well, becomes a witch. The animation is fantastic, but there's also a lot of intangibles to this adaptation that just really work for me, like how Shirahama's sillier moments are there with all the personality of these characters really shining through, how magic violently flips between being something beautiful and wondrous to something dark and ominous. Yuka Kitamura's score does a lot of the heavy lifting with giving these scenes some real weight, with magic not just being something beautiful for our protagonists to learn, but something that feels genuinely occult, low-key disturbing, hinting at some darker reasons it might be so forbidden before we as an audience even understand why. One thing you'll notice on a rewatch is that music only enters the scenes when magic is involved on screen, a brilliant bit of subtlety that really underscores how wondrous it is. Coco's life is quiet, ordinary, but with magic, there's an entirely additional element, something you might have not even realized was missing. It's such a cool detail that I don't think has gotten enough credit, but since Yuka Kitamura has since reposted people pointing it out herself, it seems fully and completely intentional. In fact, everything about these opening episodes feels intentional. There's so much detail and such pedestrian action, like the animation for Coco's choosing, marking, and cutting of the fabric. Obviously, we're supposed to see this as the same sort of hint that Kifuri does, that not only does Coco have a steady hand that could lend itself to drawing, but the meta subtext here is maybe something like making clothes is, in and of itself, a perfectly valid form of expression, of magic, and it's animated like it. Right off the bat, Coco is such a fantastic protagonist. Her sense of awe and wonder of the world she inhabits is infectious, and you almost can't help but root for her. First, as she's an outsider looking into the world of magic, then even harder as we realize how devastating the realization was to her younger self, and then even more as we see the first real stakes of the series, the loss of her mother that drives the whole story forward. This beginning chapter is brilliant in the manga, almost reminiscent of something like Full Metal Alchemist in the loss of a parent, the introduction of a complex and yet fair magic system, and a protagonist that is both 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the respective world system. In my manga reaction, I was not expecting the series to be so immediately dark, and I'm sure some anime-onlys might have felt the exact same way watching this. There's a lot to love about Witch Hat Atelier, and I'll likely be making a series of Witch Hat essays as the episodes air. But I want to talk about one last thing, what in my eyes was the most impressive part of these 2 episodes, and it's this moment. This unfolding of Kiefer's iconic manga pose was the moment I knew Bug Films just understood the assignment, taking pretty much a 1-to-1 panel and making it this beautiful folding paper pop-up with smoke in the background, it's so good. It's just a really inspired change to more or less just use the manga panel as is directly in the anime. So then imagine my surprise that the first OP is exactly that. Witch Hat Atelier's OP takes all of the manga covers and pages fans thought would be impossible to adapt or just appear out of place in the show and weaves them into a stunning moving painting, shifting between the anime's art style, old parchment scrolls, and manga, taking some of the chapter titles that are so beautiful on their own and putting them to motion. And this storybook papercraft motif is something the anime seems to be doubling down on, which serves as a fantastic design choice. It gives the anime full creative liberties on Shirahama's pages without awkwardly forcing them into scenes. Maybe the framing and the paneling would have seemed out of place if it was just happening in the middle of random episodes, but to be contained into such an inventive and amazing OP, it just seems like the perfect intentional choice. And I just think it's so cool because just like that, Witch Hat Atelier goes from a celebration of drawing, traditionally, to a celebration of animation, of music, and of course, Witch Hat Atelier itself. I could gush about Witch Hat Atelier pretty much nonstop, maybe forever, so we'll leave it at that for this week. But next week we'll talk about something from episode 2. And if you'd like more Witch Hat Atelier content from me, I have read the entire thing live on camera. Every single episode is available on my Patreon and by becoming a YouTube channel member. So it supports the channel and lets you see my first reaction to the entire world of Witch Hat Atelier. For better or worse. A big thank you to all my patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members. Their names will be on the screen, and thank you guys so much. If you'd like to get early content, silly videos that I don't want to publish on main, and watch-alongs of anime and read-alongs of manga, you can check out the Patreon. I've been Dom, this has been Witch Hat Atelier, and until next time.